praise song. They say, oh Lord our God. We bow at your feet.
Okay, start.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We're going to start off with prayer. Mr. Schaefer, if you don't mind leading us in prayer.
That's our gracious Lord. Thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you're doing in our lives. Thank you for being God all by yourself. We pray now, Lord, over this Bible study. Allow our minds to be open. Allow us to be filled up with you. Allow us to learn and allow us to receive the lesson that's being taught today. It's in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So today we're going to be coming from Genesis chapter 40. It's a very good lesson, and it probably will go into Genesis chapter 41 as well. I'm going to start off by reading verses 1 through 4. And I'm coming from the King James Version. And it reads, "And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard, into prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward." Okay, so we're actually going to back up a little bit. This, you kind of have to know what's going on in chapter 39 to know where we're coming from. So in chapter 39, Joseph was working for Potiphar, and the Lord was blessing everything that Joseph touched. He ended up being second in command to Potiphar, and it tells us that Potiphar worried about nothing because when Joseph took over, the Lord had blessed and everything had prospered. One day when Potiphar was gone, his wife had tried to seduce Joseph, and Joseph had denied her several occasions. And one day he walked in and it was just him. And so she told him, "You're going to sleep with me." He denied. Long story short, his garments got ripped and he ran out to escape. And then after he escaped, Potiphar's wife came and told the male servants, and to follow up, she told her husband that he had tried to sleep with her. She had screamed, scared him away, and that's why she was holding his garment. So, just yeah, she straight out lied because she did not get her way. But he was being loyal to Potiphar. He was being loyal to God because he knew he had been placed in that position. He did not want to do anything to jeopardize it. Of course, when Potiphar comes home and his wife tells him the story, he's angry, as anyone would be. And so he takes Joseph and has him thrown in prison. But God is with Joseph no matter where he goes. Then it proceeds that while he's in prison, God still goes and shows Joseph favor. So while he's in prison, the prison guards have now taken a liking to Joseph, and now they put him in charge of everyone in prison. So no matter what circumstances Joseph's going through, God is still with him. All right. And that kind of brings us to chapter 40, so you're just not so lost. When Pharaoh gets upset with his cupboard, his butler, I had to do a little research to figure out exactly what it was, but his head chief butler, as well as his head chief baker. So he gets upset with them and throws them in prison, and Joseph is now in charge of them. So now we're going to go into verses 5 through 8, and it's going to get into the baker and the butler's dreams that they had while they were in prison. And it reads, "And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night. each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of the Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly to this day? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there was no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. So this is one of the blessings that God has granted Joseph. So Joseph knows that interpretations come from the Lord. So he first is giving God his credit, not that he's going to be the interpreter of all these dreams. But with giving God credit first, he's like, let me know the dream and I will interpret it to you. And so they proceed in verses 9. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph. And he said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossom shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine hand and restore thee unto thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into thy hand after the former manner which thou wast his butler. So he interpreted the butler's dream as it represented in 3 days, Pharaoh's going to restore you to the chief position that you once held before you were in prison. So now that the bakers heard this, he's got good interpretations. Now he's a little bit more inclined to ask Joseph to interpret his dreams. They just said they both had dreams, but it was kind of like, you don't always want to be the first. Let me go and get some information, fill somebody out, see how mom's feeling this morning before I ask if I can go out this weekend. So they kind of waited. He got some good interpretations from the butler's dreams. So he proceeded to tell the baker his dreams. But prior to that, if I could actually have someone read chapter 40, verses 14 and 15.
But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing, that they should put me into the dungeon.
So he just interpreted his dream, and he's making a request now. He says, I've already interpreted. Pharaoh's going to place you back in your rightful position, but can you do me this one favor? When you get there, I haven't done anything to deserve to be thrown in prison. I'm just asking you, don't forget me. When you are restored, can you please mention me to Pharaoh? And after that, Joseph, so the cupbearer dream predicts his restoration to his position. Then it gets into the baker. Like he said, he's also felt him out, seen, okay, this was a positive interpretation. Let me tell him my dream, thinking that it's going to have some of the same properties, that it's going to be a positive interpretation of his dream. So he proceeds to tell Joseph his dream. Can someone please read verses 16 through 19?
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee.
So,
Now we need an interpretation. I'm just trying to figure all this out.
so when Joseph interprets his dreams, so the first he was excited because the butler was being restored. So Joseph informs him that you will be killed in 3 days. It still represents 3 days, but instead of being restored to the chief baker, Pharaoh is going to impale you on a stick, behead you, and impale your body on a stick. So, not quite the interpretation he was hoping for. So now, I can only assume he's hoping that his interpretations aren't true. Because no one, someone just told you, Pharaoh the king's going to kill you in 3 days. And so, it just got them kind of got him in an uproar, so to speak. But Joseph, the interpretations were coming from God, so it's just a matter of time. They were definitely going to not return void. So it goes on in verses 20, and it reads, and it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. So the interpretations that he had just told both of them, both came true 3 days later, which happened to coincide on Pharaoh's birthday. So, but going back a few verses, he had a request. I'm going to interpret these, but please don't forget me. Mention me to Pharaoh. I don't deserve to be imprisoned. But he just got restored, and it says he forgot. He was so happy to be out of prison, be back in Pharaoh's house as the chief butler, that he had forgot all about how this, guy in prison had just interpreted this entire dream, and he had literally just watched it come to pass. So, it kind of, a little takeaway about that is patience and faith. Even though Joseph's dream interpretations were accurate, but he still must wait for God's timing to act on his own dream of ruling over his family. Even when others forget him, God does not forget. So, it's just, we often ask God for things, and we want it on our time. But we have to remember that God works on his own time. We live in a microwave generation now. Everything we want it quick, right now. But this was really testing Joseph's patience, testing his faith, testing his loyalty to God, because I can only imagine if someone just interpreted my dreams and I just got restored to this very prestigious position, the least I could do is, all you requested is just I mention you to Pharaoh. But he did everything he was asked, and he's still sitting in prison for over another 2 years. So, in God's timing, sometimes it takes a long time for God to fulfill his promises, The cupbearer's forgetfulness shows us that we have to wait on God's perfect timing, even when it seems uncertain. So even though we feel like we live in a microwavable society or microwave generation where everything's right now, like yesterday, I don't even say right now. That's not how God works. So sometimes we feel like God isn't answering our prayers or listening to us when in all actuality, he's just making us wait a little bit, which is usually for our own good, so we don't mess up things even more. Sometimes the worst thing you can get is what you actually pray for, because it may not come exactly the way you thought that it would be handed to you. God will answer your prayers, but sometimes it's going to be a little painful because we just are wanting things the way we want them, and that's just not how God works. So, then we go into verses 41. I'm sorry, chapter 41. Excuse me, that was a short chapter. Did you have something? Or so we're gonna, and that's, I kind of figured it would kind of tie into 41. We are going to go into 41. Just 40 was a shorter chapter. But I guess a couple questions. And anyone feel free to answer. Just integrity in adversity. How can you maintain your integrity when you face temptations or false accusations? And a good example when, what can Joseph's example teach us? How to maintain integrity in times of false accusations or temptations.
Patience. He doesn't hold a grudge. He's not bitter. He's just, his faith is strong.
Yeah.
So
Just having strong faith will help you maintain your integrity. And I think on top of that, just like you said, he's strong in his faith. He's not taking anything personal. Like if you read back, he was sold by his brothers. I mean, everything, he's taking it on the chin. Like you said, he's not holding any grudges. He's not holding any animosity towards anyone. Wherever he goes, but the Lord is with him everywhere he goes. Like the Lord has not forsaken him. The Lord has literally, he's in prison, but yet he's favored by the overseer of the prison. So he's now overseeing the prison, second in command. So God is steadily giving him favor everywhere he goes. All right, and concerning God's timing, how do you respond when things don't happen on your timeline? What might God be teaching you about patience? Anybody?
Sometimes you just gotta have to do timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. God's timing is not our timing. Thank God, God. Thank God that his timing is not our timing.
because we're prone to make mistakes. God doesn't make mistakes. And if our faith is strong and we put it in him, we just wait.
Definitely. Definitely. That's really it. It's easier said than done. We could talk about patience. We could talk about keeping a cool head in the midst of adversity. But you really, when you're in those situations, you just have to, take a step back and really just think on it, and try to not sin, and try to keep your patience. And like I said, it's a lot easier than done because sometimes God will test us, putting us in situations. But as your faith grows, as your relationship with Christ grows, those adversities, those temptations should not have the same effect on you. You should see some growth. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but the growth should be steadily occurring if your relationship with Christ is steadily growing. Now we're going to get into chapter 41, the two dreams of Pharaoh. If someone could please read verses 1 through 8, please. Chapter 41.
And it comes to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored knives in fat flesh, and they feed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other clans came up after them out of the river, little favors and little flesh, and stood by the other came upon the brink of river. And the little favored the first kind did eat up the 7 walls favored and fat king. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one strike rate and good. And behold, 7 then ears that last with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 then ears devour the 7 ranked fall ears, and Pharaoh awoke. Behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men. Therefore, Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could capture them unto Pharaoh.
So now Pharaoh's having this dream, and time is just a cow. When I first read this, I read everything in King James Version, and I'm like, what is this? But it's a cow. So his dream was there were some fat, healthy cows, and then some less infested were some smaller, like ill-looking cows coming from the water. So Pharaoh now just has this dream, and he's trying to have it interpreted. So he calls all the magicians and anyone he thinks that can interpret this dream, but no one can interpret it for him. So now the chief butler remembers, oh, I met a guy in prison who happens to have interpreted my dream. I wonder if he can help interpret this dream of Pharaoh's, as he's already called everyone he thought that could interpret it, and they've been of no help. So, then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my thoughts this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dreams. And there were there with us a young man, a Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream did he interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so that it was me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. So, God's timing again. Joseph wanted, obviously, to be, the chief butler to tell Pharaoh about him earlier, but God's timing is perfect timing. Pharaoh's now had this dream, can't find anybody to interpret it. So the chief butler, I had a young man, a young Hebrew. Not only did he interpret each of our dreams, but they both came to pass. So now Pharaoh's like, okay, let's go get this young man. So verses 14. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. Ahoy saying, it's not me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Now take a little break. So he's still giving God the credit. He's interpreted these dreams. He said he was in prison for over 2 more years before this chief butler finally had told Pharaoh about him. So literally, it's not his time. And he wanted, because he didn't deserve to be in prison in the first place. He wanted to be out of prison much sooner. But when he does get called from Pharaoh, have to clean him up before he can go in the presence of a king. But as soon as he gets there, Pharaoh tells him, oh, I heard you can interpret dreams. And he, instead of taking the credit from the king, he's like, no, it's God. It's not me. God shall give Pharaoh his answers. And verse 17, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dreams, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, flat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up from them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine, and when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dreams, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good, and behold, 7 ears withered, thin and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. So he now tells Joseph his dreams in its entirety. But I still find it amazing that through all this adversity, through everything, that Joseph is now in the presence of the king, and his first thing is to give God the glory, give God the praise, give God his credit. And this is, I think, why God has shown him this favor. He's been tested over the last several years, but he's still giving God all of the glory first. So after Pharaoh tells him his dreams, Joseph tells him that God will interpret it to him. Then he proceeds to interpret it. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, reading verses 25 now. The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing in which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plentiful, thought out all throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall rise after them 7 years of famine, and that all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. So, and you have to I try to put myself in that position. He's talking to the king. So you're interpreting his dream. You tell him that they're both related. It's the same dream. That the fat cows and the good grain represent seven prosperous years for the land of Egypt. But following that up will be 7 famine years that will be so bad that you won't even remember the 7 good years. And he's talking to the king, so he could be thrown back in prison. He could be beheaded. Like the king at this point, if he does not like his interpretation, he has the authority to do whatever he wants. But he gave God the glory, and he's interpreting just as is. So he's not worried because God has kept him this far. Why would he stray away from the interpretation that God has given him to give to Pharaoh? But can only imagine being in front of someone who has the power to end your life or do whatever they want, and you're giving him, this is not good news. That you're excited about the prosperous years, but when you say the famine years are going to come and swallow up everything that you were prosperous and you won't even realize it happened, this is not anything good that he's telling Pharaoh. So, after that, and verses 31. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities, and that the food shall be restored to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land perish not through the famine. So, not only did he interpret the dream that there is going to be 7 years of feast, very prosperous in Egypt, followed by 7 famine years, but then he tells him how to go at this problem, how we can fix it. And that's, God does that. God will show us things and inform us, but it's not, he doesn't always just give us information. He tells us what we need to do to be successful, or to, in this case, survive the famine. So, and I'm still like, he's still talking to the king. Like, I don't want you guys to forget, this is all in the midst of Pharaoh. At the time, it's the highest in the land. So he's told him, interpreted his dreams, and then he's told him what God has told him to do so they can survive this famine, because it's going to be terrible. And then we are on verses 37. If someone could read verses 37 through 40 for me.
And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forsomuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word shall my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you.
So, we went from Joseph was second in charge in Potiphar's house. Right? He only was in prison after Potiphar's wife lied, because he would not deceive his master and sleep with his wife. Because he said, I can do anything. He's not concerned with me, with the land. You're the only thing that's off limits because you are his wife. He gets thrown in prison. Then he becomes second in command of the prison. The overseer of the prison takes a liking to him, puts him second in command, and it says he doesn't worry about the prisoners. Everything is on Joseph's hands. Now, he's taken out of prison by Pharaoh to interpret this dream that nobody can interpret. And now, after he interprets the dream, he informs Pharaoh on how they can survive the famine. Now, Pharaoh's like, okay, everything sounds good. Let's take this advice and follow it. But he's like, if you have been this wise to interpret it, who's going to be wiser than you to actually step up and make sure this comes to pass, make sure this goes into fruition? So now he is second in command of Egypt. So this is, God is literally just blessing him. This is, you gotta think about it. His brothers were trying to kill him. They were left to be eaten and ravaged by wild animals. And now he is second in command in Egypt. Just being faithful, being patient. Like you said, not harboring any hard feelings towards anyone who would sin against him. And just steadily giving God his credit first, not trying to take credit for his interpretation skills that God was blessing him with. And God has literally been testing him year after year after year. And now, remember he had a dream when he was, still in his father's house, that his siblings were going to bow down to him. It's all, God's words don't return void. It's going to happen in his timing, but they're not going to return void. So now he's the second in command in Egypt, which it's, if you really think about it, God can take you no matter where your starting point is, how unworthy you feel, how much bad you think you've done, how unforgivable you feel. It doesn't matter where you are. God can literally elevate you to the highest of the highs. It just takes us being faithful, growing our relationship with Christ, and just staying on that path. He's elevated Joseph to the second in command in Egypt, which is, you're second in command to a king, and your king respects you so much. I don't even know, you're not the king, but you have just as much authority if you really look at it, because of his respect for you. So, all right, we're gonna get back into it.
Question.
Yes.
What's ironic in this scripture is that I don't, and if I missed something, let me know, but Joseph didn't ask
No.
for any of this. He
No.
didn't say, Father, help me, make me this or anything. He didn't request anything.
No.
It just came to him.
Joseph had a dream that when he informed his brothers, they got jealous, took him out, and we're not going to kill you, we're going to sell you, make some money, and then die later, but blood won't be on our hands. And now you see these dreams. He's being in a position where you're going to see these dreams come true. So you're 1,000% right. I didn't read, and I'm not, I could miss something too, but I read several different versions. I never saw Joseph ask for any of it. I never saw Joseph, why am I in this position?
Don't question it.
Didn't question it. He just rolled with the punches, and he stayed faithful, and he used his gift that God had given him, interpretations of dreams. But he gave God the credit first before he interpreted anybody's dreams. All right. So you went through 40? Okay. So 41 reads, And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow thy knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphanai Phaneah, and he gave him the wife Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So, he made him second in command. He gave him his second best chariot. He told the whole land of Egypt to bow thy knee. Gave him a chain, gave him a ring, fine linens. Then he blessed him with a wife. And like you said, Joseph didn't ask for any of this. Joseph was just a little Hebrew boy. I want to go back to that. Like, God is just elevating him and blessing him, no matter what his circumstances are. God is still in the midst and just continues to elevate him. And we are getting short on time, so we got like 2 more verses. Let's power through. We got like 5 minutes. If someone wants to read verses 46 through 49.
And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, and the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, have made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction.
You stop there. You're good. I'm gonna finish it off in 53 through 57. And the 7 years of plenteous that were in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all the land, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all the countries came unto Egypt to Joseph for the buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all the lands. So, everything, the interpretations that he had told Pharaoh are now coming to pass. And because Pharaoh was wise enough to take heed unto what this little Hebrew boy that he got out of a prison cell interpreted his dreams to be, he took heed to it and listened, put him in charge of it, he executed it. Now that the famine is beginning, there is bread, there is corn, grain, depending on which versions, of the text. But there is food when there is a famine amongst all the land. So this is just a super, I didn't go super in depth, but it's just God can elevate us from any point. If we are loyal and trust God and just stay down and stay on the righteous path, God will bless us in any circumstance. We that's something that if we can take from Joseph, and we always say life can be life in, or life is just putting you through things, but no matter what your circumstances, God will stand with you, and in the end you will be victorious, and he will elevate you, and just that's really my biggest takeaway. Like, it's just stay, you suffer with Christ and you shall reign with Christ. So don't, you can't have a testimony without a test. We always want the good part, but sometimes we have to suffer so we can make it through to the good. And that concludes chapter 40 and 41. Is there any questions, comments, anything?
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yes. Linda, if you want to lead us